Have you ever ran a D&D game, a GURPS game or any other tabletop RPG game and had a player character enter a shop and the player asks you, "So what's for sale?" As a GM, more often than not, you cannot answer this question properly, as you do not have a list of every single item for sale. Usually the player asks, "Is there a long spear for sale?" And you go, "Yes, of course." Then the player goes, "Is there a fine long spear for sale?" And you go, probably not." And this might take a while. For mundane items such as adventuring gear, food, weapons and armor, this usually is okay. But this problem gets much worse when shopping, for example, for magic items or alchemical potions. There are so many possibilities that you just cannot account for. In this video, I would like to show off some obscure GURPS rules that might help you, as a GM, handle shops. How do you determine what the player characters can buy and what they cannot buy? Mostly it's arbitrary, but this arbitrary choice depends on many factors, such as culture, laws, race, size of the settlement. For example, if you ask a weaponsmith in the fantasy equivalent of the Roman Empire if he has a katana for sale, you are very unlikely to receive a positive response, even if you ask this question in Rome itself. If you do so in the fantasy equivalent of Japan, you are likely to find a katana for sale, if your social position is appropriate. The same applies to magic items and alchemical elixirs. In a desert, you are likely to find minor magic items for sale that create water or make the wearer resistant to heat. But why would a merchant sell such items in a temperate town near a river? It all depends on the physical and social environment. I would like to point out a book that is very underappreciated in my opinion, GURPS Dungeon Fantasy setting Cavern Town. Even if you are not interested in the setting itself, it has great rules and guidelines that you can adapt to any other settlement in your game world, and these rules cannot be found anywhere else. The Goods and Services chapters describe what kind of goods are available all the time, how much they cost, but what interests me the most are rules for finding uncommon goods. For example, most of the normal weapons, including the so-called Eastern martial arts weapons, can easily be found for sale. Dwarven weapons too, since there are many dwarven armorers. However, any other positive weapon modifier requires you to roll against 6, modified by cost factor divided by 10, dropping all fractions. If you roll below the target number, you find this weapon. If you roll above, you do not. There are different ways to calculate this penalty for armor and other items, but I believe that you can make things even more simple and come up with descriptive categories of rarity to determine the target number. For example, common items should be available without any rolls. Uncommon items should be available on a roll of 9 and below, and rare items should be available on a roll of 6 and below. So when a player asks you if he can buy something, you think if this item is common or rare, make a roll if necessary and tell him the result. GURPS Dungeon Fantasy setting Cavern Town suggests that before attempting to roll to find this item again, the players must wait 1d plus 1 weeks, or if you'd like to use some meta time, after returning to the town after finishing the next adventure. One way to spice it up, that is suggested in the book as well, is rolling a random item using GURPS Dungeon Fantasy 8 treasure tables for every player character when they return to the town after an adventure. These items are new, they have been brought in by merchants or other adventurers. That is super cool. I would also like to give spotlight to another adjacent question. Why does everything everywhere cost the same? If you don't mind some extra rolls, check out Pyramid 387. The medieval sea trade article by David Polver has a nice table that you can use to determine the deviation of the actual price from what's written in the books. Do not roll for every single shop and item. I would apply this modifier to categories of goods instead, and for the settlement in general, not for every individual store. These price deviations can give the player characters a reason to travel to other cities, and might even provide you with quest hooks. Why is armor so expensive in this city? Maybe the new guild master of the Armorers Guild is increasing the prices, and some other guild members are discontent with that. Or maybe it has to do with resource shortages, due to the iron mine being overrun by goblins. There is a similar table in GURPS spaceships too, traders, liners and transports, but the pyramid version is intended for low-tech games. So that's all I wanted to talk about here. Do you have any other ideas? If you do, share them in the comments. I'm sure other people, including myself, would love to read them. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.